it. Welcome, everybody. This is SharePoint Dev Weekly, episode 13. See, we're not superstitious. That reminded me, actually. Boom. Yes, exactly. And the video recording failed. Even SharePoint, actually, do you remember this? The SharePoint 2007 was 2007 was code version of 12.
And 12, and the next one was 14. Yeah.
We didn't have 13 because we didn't want to actually. Yeah, just in case. We didn't want to employ it. I live in a house number 13, so I don't care. I'm ruined. Anyway.
On that bombshell.
Exactly. Okay, so welcome everybody. So this week once again I have a visitor in the room in
his room
in his room. He's a visitor in his room. So let's actually start with Velin. Can you explain who you are? And let's start from there.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Velin, and I recently joined the PMP team. Am I?
Yes, you did.
Yeah. But let's say that I've started as a second-generation SharePoint developer. I'm not a dinosaur like you, Vesa. I don't know. Maybe Waldek, you're a dinosaur as well.
Hey. Note to self: pay more attention to inviting guests.
But I've started around 2008 with Radi Atanasov, and I went through all the cycle. Like I worked with SharePoint Server 2007, then I worked with Fortress Solutions, then I worked with add-ins. Now, my focus is on the SharePoint framework and Office 365 and SharePoint Online because I work with SharePoint Online for the past 3 years. So the focus is the new stuff, the latest and the greatest stuff, and I'm very happy to be here.
Guess what, Velin? I've worked with SharePoint Online for the past 3 years as well.
Yes.
I also have worked with SharePoint Online for the past 3 years.
Sorry.
No. I've tried to explain that you're older, like you're more in the business for more years than.
You're older.
I'm not old.
Stop talking. It's going south. But I mean, you are also an MVP, right?
Yes, I'm MVP since October the month ago. I became an MVP, and after that I became part of the PMP team. And let's do a little bit of introduction on that. Maybe on my job, I'm working for Pramerica, and I'm a technical architect there. And my focus is supporting, I'm a cross-functional supporting 3 Scrum teams, and half of my day is Outlook, and very less of my day is looking at the very urgent issues and talking with guys from the Office 365 PG teams. So my primary tool is a little bit more Outlook than the Visual Studio Code, but I have a secret life. So my secret life is to still maintain my coding skills, and I'm helping the PMP initiative. So as Vesa said previously, I'm trying to contribute in all the possible places where I see that I can contribute with something. But also I'm involved in the Office 365 CLI tool because I loved it. Like last year when Waldek and Vesa introduced that the tool, I was could be a nice another nice tool, but we already have PMP PowerShell. But later when I just looked at the guidelines and how we can contribute, and everything is so like a first-class software, you need to have the documentation, you need to have the unit tests, everything is in place. And I've said, that could be first-class software. I better join because I love doing things properly. I love doing things like what is in the CLI tool, and I love it. And it's a really nice piece of software that I would continue working on.
Yeah. And in your case, you've been contributing on the PMP CSUM extension, PowerShell, web parts extensions, random samples, then CLI, and a few other things probably as well.
Yes.
So Velin has been super active on the community. And in the PM, just to clarify how the PMP core team actually works. So the PMP core team is a selection of those MVPs who've been actively contributing on the samples. What we do, we in engineering, we coordinate this work, but then the people are coordinating or contributing on that. And the PMP core team is the group of MVPs who help on handling the incoming requests in GitHub, and also coordinating the open source projects and what happens there underneath the supervision of the engineering. You have to be an MVP to be part of the PMP core team. That's one requirement because you get, we took some NDA stuff as well. And as an MVP, you're under NDA, so you need to actually sign off an NDA agreement. And the second dimension on getting to the core team is that we need to get an anonymous, what is it? What's the right term?
Unanimous.
Unanimous agreement with the existing group of MVP core team members. So because we want to make sure that everybody feels happy about the growing the team, and everybody feels happy about the persons who are coming in. So, but these core team members basically help us to scale because there's so many tools, there's so many documentation, there's so many open source stuff, and community needs assistance and help because we in engineering necessarily, all of our stuff, what we release, are not super obvious necessarily, and there's some tricks and tips here and there. So we need to have MVPs helping us on that journey. Quick fun, clarification. Right? Yeah, it is absolutely fun. Yeah, it's the SharePoint actually moved to this model pretty quite not recently, quite a long time ago already. So we started doing this in the SharePoint. With the first as a separate thing as a PMP, but then PMP took over everything, the documentation and samples, official everything, guidance on the SharePoint side way back already. And now actually all of the other organizations are looking into doing exactly the same. So it's kind of funny. For SharePoint, it was an evolution of an accident, so to say. So it was not really a planned decision that this would happen. But hey, it seems to be working fine.
I thought it's always a part of a bigger plan.
There's always a bigger plan. Yes, indeed. There's always a bigger plan.
Maybe I can share another story then how I started contributing.
Yep, absolutely.
That could be a little bit selfish, but after 3 or 4 or 5 years of SharePoint, I said I have so much knowledge in that head, and I've learned so much about SharePoint, and getting started with SharePoint is not easy.
Sure.
And you might need 2 years to just progress through all the different technologies and everything that's there. And I've said, I have all that knowledge. Why don't I share it?
Yeah.
And the PMP initiative was there for already 1 or 2 years, and I've said that could be a really good place because, my knowledge, my ideas, no matter how good or bad they are, they'll have visibility there, and I'll try to share all that knowledge. So I invested all that time in the past, and then now I'll try to share all that knowledge with the people. They might like it. So I encourage everyone to just start and share their knowledge, because I'm not the best professional in the world, but I know things or two, and trying to share it because someone else might spend the days in search where to find it. So
I've always tried to. Yeah? That's a really good input, and I always try to explain this as let's rather build on top of the common community knowledge. So basically, share what you have. You will learn from others, and they will learn from you, and then we crew as a community together rather than competing between each other. I'm not going to share this because this is my thingy, and it's like, well, if nobody's going to know that you have the thing and you are skillful enough to know that, nobody's going to value that because it's not. The easiest way also to get acknowledged, get visible, you got an MVP on the fact that you're contributing. So the easiest way to really, if you're interested in getting acknowledged on the fact that you're a smart person and you're sharing, is to really share the stuff. So
but I guess there's also another angle to it, right? Because the way I experience it, is that in the place where I work, we do certain kind of things.
Yep.
And at some point, we tend to follow the same approach for the things that we do, because that allows us to move fast. Yep. But that doesn't mean that that's the best way, because we might miss something. And when you share your ideas with others, sure, there is somebody who might criticize you, But on the other hand, there is a bigger group from whom you can learn. And from that, you can come up to new ideas, new insights that will help you and your company improve as well, right? Because that allows you to tap into this worldwide group of people who do similar things, but in a different way.
Slightly different perspective or whatever.
Exactly.
And then if I combine that with that one, that's gold, and so on. So,
and that's collective knowledge. That's very powerful.
Exactly.
That's very powerful, and then based on that collective knowledge, like as a real scenario, real case, we've built a product for the past 2 years that is based on patterns and practices, and it's based on all the different libraries we have, and it works flawlessly. I mean, it passes all the audits, all the checks for quality, and all the libraries are there, and it's just perfect. So, collective knowledge.
Collective knowledge is a really good way of putting that. So, absolutely. Cool. Waldek, quickly from your side, what have you been doing for the past week? Let's do a quick rounds, and then we need to jump on the docs so we don't be taking a full hour again.
So last week we continued a bit the debacle about NPM audit and 200 issues, whether you have to care about that or not. So that is already
endless
out.
Debate between you and AC, right?
Well, not really. I mean, he has his point of view that tends to be pragmatic. He says, I'm taking more the stance of, sure, it's totally fine to accept risks, but you can only do it after you know what the risks are. Ignoring them because there are too many is like, nice. Anyways, so this is already done and dusted, I think. Another thing that we've done, which is really big, and we've already got some feedback around that too, is that we've updated the CLI and included the ability to upgrade your SharePoint Framework project to the version 1.7, which when we record this was released 4 days ago.
4 days. Yeah, that's really fast.
So we really try to be on point, because that's the one thing that we've seen, right? That when there is new version, people want to jump on it and try it, but then they need to upgrade, and it's like, okay, so what do I do? And then you can upgrade packages, but there is more to it. So we try to simplify all of that. And then another thing that we learned is that previously the way we do it in CLI is that when we release something new, anything, it's going into a beta, and it stays there between week and 4 weeks because we release every month.
Yep.
Then last time around, we learned that when we release the upgrade of SPFX to 1.6, people were like, "Okay, I want to do it, but where is that?" And it was in beta for a long time. So it's like, you know what? Let's take the risk, ship it, and then if there is anything wrong, we will fix that. But let's release it into a release that people will just be able to grab, and then it's also in the docs, because otherwise it's in beta, and our doc says it's still 1.5, but we say we have 1.6, and how can that be? Like, no. You know what? Let's just take the jump. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
but we're agile, right? So we can
super agile. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Definitely. No, yeah. So that was basically the whole thing, right? Try to ship that, get it done as quickly as we can, basically to help people try 1.7 as soon as they can, and not have to wait or go through the manual hoops of upgrading the project.
Yep. Absolutely makes sense. And obviously for me, the 1.7 was a big thing on Thursday, getting that one out, getting the docs out, and then did some video recordings on Fridays, and samples out.
Blog posts, and samples, messaging, Twitter, social.
Tutorials, and yes.
You can just keep waving your hands.
There's quite a lot to do, yeah. There's always a quadrillion amount of links, which we might actually fail. I still fixed one link yesterday when I was watching the F Formula 1. I'm a big fan of Formula 1, so I watched that. But then I was working at the same time because I was watching that on that screen, and then I have multiple screens here, and then multitasking. But fixing some of the links still, so making sure that everything is up to date. So it is what it is. So. But really cool to get it out. We're going to actually have a look on slightly on the 1.7 capabilities. I've been pointing the URLs for the articles and what was released, because really cool stuff, absolutely. But I think that that's pretty much on my side, and quadrillion of other things, obviously, as well. But the story of my life. So let me actually jump on the screen. So let's put this one available. Can you guys see what I'm sharing?
Yep.
So let's have a look on this. So first of all, AKMS SP Dev Blog or developer.microsoft.com/SharePoint/blogs. I think this is redirecting properly, isn't it? If I click that. Yes, it is. So the SharePoint Dev Blog, and in here, that is actually the announcement from Thursday. Bring your apps to more places with new SharePoint framework and Microsoft team releases. Interesting title. Anyway, I didn't write this. I reviewed this one. We have a slightly different people responsible of the official messaging. Well, not official. Everything is official messaging. The big announcements go through slightly different people. So,
long story short, there is the marketing team and engineering team.
Yeah, pretty much. That's a good way of putting that. So in 1.7, obviously a big thing, web parts in Microsoft Teams. So basically how to implement your web parts in Microsoft Teams. This one here is the lead example, which I actually showed in the SBC keynote back in May. And we will release this code during this week, hopefully. So it is actually calling an Azure function. If needed, we modified that slightly. But it's basically exposing the web parts or the SharePoint framework solution surfacing as a Microsoft Teams tab. So we don't actually want to explicitly call it out, even though it's actually explicitly called out this way in here. We shouldn't say that it's a web part surfaced in Microsoft Teams, because no, that's not actually what it is. It is you're using the SharePoint framework, which probably will be renamed at some point to something else, like Office 365 framework or Microsoft 365 framework, who knows. But you're basically using the same tooling, and then your custom LOB application or your application or solution can be surfaced as a web part or as a tab. That's really the idea of the thing. It's not that you're writing a web part and then you're surfacing that as a tab. Well, kind of, yes, but it's
today, yes, but I mean that will change. But I guess the point is that whether it's a web part or a tab, that is the shape that it takes when you watch it. Behind the scene is just an app.
It's basically the same implementation for both of these. Is it a web part or is? And that's a really important thing. And now, sorry.
That's a big thing for me.
It is a massive thing. It's absolutely a massive thing. Let me actually get you guys on that screen so I can see you while I'm talking. So that's a huge thing, and obviously we're already looking into getting other services and organizations to use SharePoint framework. Because the key point here is that if you have a look on the Microsoft Teams development, the let's say the old way of doing stuff, this basically the things work in a way that you have a manifest file and then you point to a URL. And that URL is then an application in Azure, which then complicates the whole story, because in enterprises, that would mean that you would have to call the guys who own the Azure subscription and ask them to give you an Azure application. And then can you also grant me the permissions in that application and manage your Azure AD? And it's like, no, this is getting too complicated. Not going to happen. Quite often is the discussion. So having SharePoint as the hosting location and also for managing the permissions will mean that there is no need for the SharePoint guys or the Office 365 guys to really contact with the Azure subscription guys, which quite often, like I said, are different people in the organization. So massive simplification. And you don't have to worry about hosting at all because we host it for you. So huge.
And it's a benefit for the developers. That just made me a Teams developer now.
Yeah, that is true. You are a Teams developer as well. That is true. Now, deliver complete application pages, pretty cool stuff as well. So we've shown this, I think, last time, didn't we? I think we showed some of this at the weekly goals. Right now, there's a small bug on this one, which we're working on getting resolved during this week. Host Microsoft Teams tabs as an application pages and web part. So you can actually take an existing Teams tab, which have been implemented as the classic Teams tab implementation way, and then surface that in SharePoint. And no changes needed whatsoever. Just drag and drop the manifest zip file to the app catalog and poof.
So in other words, that is the tab that actually run in Azure.
Yes, that is the tab which are running in Azure. To be fair, you need to modify your manifest to allow SharePoint to host you in an iframe. But there's like one small itsy-bitsy thing what you need to do, but still super cool stuff. New hosting options for web parts, isolated web parts. Really not that well explained here. It's explained really well on the docs. Stream updates with list subscriptions. The whole point is that you get events whenever there's a, for example, new document and document library. And then also the web part dynamic data is now in GA, and SharePoint 2019 support in Yeoman templates is in GA. Pretty cool as well.
Woo!
Woohoo! So just to quickly pinpoint this, where we are from a documentation side. So we released this one on Thursday evening, and then on Friday morning on my time, we released the video on the tutorial as well. It works pretty well. It's a really nice. I think it's a 15-minute video to understand how things work, and the answer is. Build here first. I'm in the wrong location. Let me click that. Building Microsoft Teams tab using SharePoint Framework. There we go. But it's if you have a look on the video, or if you scan this page through, you're going to realize that if you are a web part developer, you're actually a Microsoft Teams developer, like Velin said. That's a good way of putting it. So it's just one like that. Site subscriptions, documentation also available. So subscribing to list notifications. So we released a new package, which you can associate and use your code. And basically the idea is that you're saying that, hey, I want to get notified when there's new documents available or changes on the documents in this document library. Right now, it's only working for document libraries. It will work with lists as well sooner or later. Why is it only working in document library? That's actually related on the capabilities in the Room API surface, which is the proxy behind of the Azure, the Microsoft Graph APIs in SharePoint.
Okay.
Super long story.
There is one deep dive question here. What will happen with the threshold? That still works in case you have more than 5K like documents or 5K list items in a list?
Good question. I don't think it should actually matter. I haven't tested it, but it shouldn't matter because we should have to verify that. So.
I assume that it's a completely different implementation, but just wondering.
It's using basically this one is using the Room API. Room API is the proxy API for Microsoft Graph for files. And we haven't externally used the Room API term that much because typically you use it through the Microsoft Graph. But there is Graph works in a way that you hit the Graph API and then Graph delegates the execution to the native APIs. Like in SharePoint case, it's the Room API, which is actually taking care of that. So we should probably at some point explain this in a more detailed in some of the videos. Now, hosting Microsoft Teams tabs as a solution in SharePoint, high level, really short clarification. What does it actually mean? References to file things. Building Microsoft Teams tabs using SharePoint Framework. So this is actual, let's say the conceptual documentation explaining, for example, deployment options. How do you need to deploy your web part or a tab to get it visible in a certain location, or where does it actually get to be visible if you deploy that using tenant scope or site scope or those options, and how to use the web part context. So short documents, we will be evolving documentation as we move along, and your feedback is super welcome. Using single part tab pages, so this is tab pages part, which right now has a small issue, which I need to clearly follow up on the documents as well. So that things are working. Share data between client-side web parts. So this is around the dynamic data. Dynamic data is now in GA, so it is available for you to take advantage in your custom implementation. The first-party web parts will pretty soon support dynamic data as well. So they will expose, for example, selected items and all of that from them, which is super cool as well. And I think the last one, this one was the tutorial. We actually showed that already from scratch, how to create a tab using the Yeoman templates. That's pretty much the articles which were released, wasn't it?
Isolated web parts.
Isolated web parts. That's a good point. How did we miss that?
I don't know.
So let's actually go there. Isolated web parts, how does it actually work and what does it actually mean? And for isolated web parts, what's really cool, what it actually means is that we dynamically create an Azure Active Directory application for every single isolated web part. So you can grant and manage the permissions.
Solution.
Microsoft Graph. Solution. Yes. For every single solution. So if there's multiple web parts in the solution, then it's for all of those web parts. But you can manage permissions then per solution. And that's really cool if you want to do that. So. And this clarifies how it actually can be done. Cool. that's kind of the Microsoft side of the game. So let's actually move on the community side of the game. And we are spending once again way too much time on this video, but that's fine. That's as expected. Well done. Cool. This is from come on, Joseph
Zelaya.
Yeah, I always refer to him as a spider. SP Rider is the
because that's the name on his blog, right?
Exactly. So this is around, and I think he works for Happify. What is it? Happify. Okay. Anyway, we'll add it in the video notes. But the good clarification on how to build or use the sentiment analysis API. In this case, using Flow. For items which are getting in the SharePoint list. So basically, whenever there's an item getting added, we're then calling the sentiment API and getting values back from there. So what is the sentiment then? And once again shows how powerful the Flow actually is, because you can really easily utilize Flow to integrate on the external systems. So.
And then at the end, he also uses column formatting to either show a smiley or a question mark if it's in doubt. Yeah. Yep,
that's pretty cool. That is really cool. So, and you can see how simple it is actually, the column formatting text in here. So super simple, because obviously, if you would want to have a button here with something that will happen, then it would be an SPFX implementation. But if it's only rendering, then the column formatting or list formatting is absolutely fine. Cool. Moving on things, Yo Mendes, list item attachment control. So this is around picking an item, attachments for list item. So a control which you can actually use within your implementation. And it has been even released as a isolated package. Now, to be fair, I also included this one in the PMP SPFX controls. So you can actually get the same control now from the package, the PMP SPFX controls, which are partly harvested from out-of-the-box SharePoint control base, and partly is community contributed stuff, like in this case, the list attachments. So really cool stuff.
Cool.
We're looking into having a community demo with him on this one as well, sooner or later, in the community calls. Paul Pollack just noted here, just updated on my SharePoint SPFX project from 1.5.1 to 1.7 using Office 365 CLI for the first time. So really cool feedback. And like you said, Waldek, on the intro, you guys updated the thing already to 1.7, which is super cool. So
yeah.
Because I would say for many of the normal developers, it's always painful to figure out what do you need to do for the updating from a certain versions to another. So trying to figure out, am I missing something? Am I not missing something?
Exactly. I mean, like here, he even skipped a version, right? So he didn't go from 1.6 to 7. No, he went from 1.5 through 1.6 to 7.
Yep.
Right. So already, even for that, CLI gave him the report with all steps in between.
Yep. Yeah. And it doesn't upgrade your solution, just to be super clear on that. It gives you the list of actions what you need to apply. So
yeah.
Cool. Then in here, Sergey's post around StyleLint with SPFX integration. And how you can actually use that. TS-Lint is probably something that people are using, but then also how you can use StyleLint for your styles and using those as a rules for your styles and how to make those things happen. So really cool stuff from Sergey, or really cool topic as well. Definitely useful for many of the developers.
Yep.
Alex had a something which we wanted to actually talk about. So Alex Tarentiev from the SharePoint list. This is around how to add folders and files in the master page gallery on modern team sites. And basically, the story is that when you're developing custom SharePoint add-ins, you might want to host maybe JavaScript, CSS files in the master page gallery. Well, debatable. Do you need to do that, or do you not need to do that? Because you could host them anywhere else as well. It's all debatable. But he's basically explaining here how to make this happen in a way that you grant the right permissions using the set SPO site, and then deny custom pages deny and apply custom pages equals false. Now, what's important to realize here is that this is actually the no script setting. And when you do this, you're setting the no script to false, which is extremely confusing because in Microsoft, we named things in an extremely confusing way. No script equals false in this case. No script equals false,
yes.
Which means that it's yes scripts.
Yes,
and that
exactly.
Basically, theoretically, then that's a security challenge as well, because that means that people are able to upload JavaScript files and any other files in this site collection as well. That's really the concern. So sure, you can at this point. That was Alexei Terentiev's point. How would I upload my JavaScript files and CSS files to the master page gallery in a modern site? Well, you decrease the security by doing this, and then he can do that, which is fair. So you can do this. Again, debatable. Do you actually want to do this or not? Laura had once again an awesome blog post. I'm going to actually open up this one in a tab, and this is around provisioning teams with the site design flow and Microsoft Graph. So basically, how do you create a teams to a SharePoint site? No.
How you teamify?
How you teamify? Yes. How you
teamify a group? Yeah.
And this is around. Is it actually gone? Hello.
No, is there?
There we go.
It's a glitch.
It's a small glitch. It's probably in my browser. Not going to claim anything else. So this is really around the fact that, if I remember correctly, it's a post event in a certain URL, which will then basically create the team for the site. Now, we haven't technically documented this. This is not documented in the Microsoft Graph either. So it's how would I put it? Experimental. But it's really nicely explained how you can use Flow to make this happen. I've technically personally have known about the Teamify API for some time, or we've been kind of pending on when we actually get it documented or not.
But I guess that if you scroll a bit up, you can see the Teamify call, and you can also see that that's a part of the beta release. A bit up. I think a bit up. Yes, here beta. Stop. If you go into the image, yes, stop. So on Graph, it's also in the beta group, meaning it is in preview.
It's in a beta. It's in preview, absolutely. Now we haven't even documented the team endpoint as a put over there. So yes, we documented that as a get, but it's unless that situation has changed pretty recently, like last week, because I was checking this documentation like early last week and just making sure that I'll be allowed. Is it fine already to document this in the SharePoint documentation or not? We're looking also having. I think we actually got a task on it. So we're looking into having this Teamify as a native SharePoint API as well. So we wouldn't actually need to have a Graph permissions to make this happen, because.
Interesting.
In this case, absolutely. What you're doing is that you're using a flow. Now, if you would use a SharePoint framework or CSAM or whatever, you would have to still authenticate using the Azure authentication, so you can get to the Graph API. So you can actually hit the put call against the Graph API. Now we're looking into doing a SPS site, a simple property or method, which is let's see, Teamify method. And that would accept any authentication on it. It's like classic authentication in SharePoint as well. So we don't have to have additional permissions, right?
Cool.
At some point, we'll see if it actually comes. Now, the last final thing what we wanted to quickly touch is is Paolo, because Paolo is smiling.
He is smiling a little bit, though. A little bit.
So for those who didn't actually hear us.
It's like, it's like we complain every week that he would never smile, that he would always be serious, almost angry, like talking about Graph, which is like pure Italian passion.
Yes.
Right,
now he's kind of almost smiling. It's pretty close.
But then the further down you go.
And then when you go here, and let me show this. And now he's serious. Sorry, Paolo. Yeah. He knows that we're messing with him, so all good, all good. Paolo, anyway, had a really good video once again, consuming OneDrive files from SharePoint Framework via Microsoft Graph. So this is a combination of how do you have an SPFX web part, which is then using Microsoft Graph and hitting the OneDrive files, and with the live demo and everything else. So really cool stuff. Relatively simple web part. Personally, I really love simple web parts, because simple web parts always answer to the question on, hey, how would I do X? And then the simple web part actually shows that immediately, rather than having a super polished and complex solution where it's like, yeah, that's showing that. Yeah, but where? I have no idea. So
yeah, and then you have the architecture diagrams with abstraction layers, dependency injection. You have no clue what is going on where.
Exactly. That's why, well, it's a combination of more complex samples and solutions, like, let's say, SharePoint Starter Kit. Those are super valuable. But then having a simplistic web parts and really addressing the scenarios is super powerful as well. Cool. I think that's it for the community stuff and the what are those? Microsoft articles.
The things that you wrote for the last days.
Yeah. Stuff what we wrote, right. Okay, anyway, cool. What happens this week? So, Waldek, what are you doing this week then?
I'm going to Harlem, where I will be seeing you.
That is actually true.
So yes, there is an event named SharePoint Connect. I think what it is.
You need to explain what is Harlem, because people are, by default,
Harlem, the Netherlands, which is a city nearby Amsterdam, the Netherlands. There's an event named SharePoint and Office 365 Connect. Yeah. And that event has been here around for, I think, for the past, I don't know how many years, 6-7 years. Over the course of years, it's changed names, but now it's back to its true origin about connecting technologies, people bring together. And you will be giving there a keynote about all things community and SharePoint Dev. SharePoint?
I am? Really? No,
last time I checked, like 5 minutes ago, you were there. I have 2 sessions. Well, it doesn't matter. It's like we give you the slides, you just go on stage, right?
I only need 1 slide for 1 hour, so not a problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have 2 presentations. One about SPFX for admins, like everything that you have to know before you put SPFX packages in production. And then another one is about connecting your SharePoint Framework solutions to Azure AD secured APIs, including the last week released isolated web parts.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's good. And like I said, before we go to the UV, and well, Velin, what are you doing this week?
I'll be releasing a portal for 40K users, so it will be an interesting week for me.
Is it an SPFX built portal, or?
It is a it's a very it's a complex solution that has 80 communication sites and 21 custom web parts built on SPFX and 6 app customizers. So it is all nice. SPFX PnP based solution, and it will go live, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, cool. Actually, related on that one, sorry, I'm going to take 2 more minutes because of that. So, yes, we still have time. You basically, there was an interesting discussion internally. We broke, again, some records and some massive milestones with SharePoint Framework adoption. But it's now 1.5 years since we released SharePoint Framework, and there was a question pretty high on the food chain, so to say. Somebody was asking that, well, how can you grow 50% in 90 days on a certain metric 1.5 years after you released this? And what's your kind of a take on why are we seeing a massive uptake this autumn for SharePoint Framework?
Because it's easier. And it's fun because most of the people are interested in the new technologies. Like, if you'll be using React or Angular, or TypeScript, that's always fun for a developer. That's why we decided to go with the SharePoint framework. So using the latest technology keep the developers happy. And on the other hand, keeps the business happy because they're seeing a nice responsive pages. And this was one of our goals, to work on any device as usual. It's a requirement for the enterprise. So if I have to deliver the feedback from my team, it's fun. It's much easier to build that compared to the old models we had. So it's fun, and the people are very engaged. At some point we got into like ego coding battle styles where everyone was trying to improve his TypeScript, JavaScript, and make it better and faster. And it is just, if you have the latest technologies, the people are interested. Maybe that could be one of the reasons.
What about from your perspective? You think about the customer side of the thing. Why are we taking an uptake or why are we seeing an uptake from the customers adapting the SPFX as well? Not just developer, because obviously developers don't decide. Customer always goes to you or somebody else and says, hey, I want to have a new core portal and I want that to be implemented X and Y way. So it's not really the developer necessarily who decides the technology. So any thoughts on that?
For the customers, it's the life cycle of the development of the features is faster. As I said, because the developers enjoyed it, and we were able to apply it in 1.5 year Scrum, where every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks we deliver new web parts, and the business benefits from that because it's live, it's there on a separate side. They can play with the web parts. It's responsive. They can easily change the page and add new web parts, remove web parts, and the business is highly engaged in that. They like it. They can change their page and they can see their web parts in no time uploaded there. Because if you have a pipeline in place, you just release the package goes to the SharePoint side, and in that user acceptance environment, the business can see it immediately and then work on it, and they enjoy that way of doing it. It's just faster and faster. You can apply modern flows, like some agile development things, and deliver faster.
Absolutely makes sense. And what I told from a just non-developer perspective also on that discussion internally was that obviously we needed to wait until the modern experience is mature enough. So right now we can say that the modern experiences, communication sites and modern team sites you can actually match 80-90% already on the scenarios comparing to the classic. So people are kind of accepting that, okay, now it has enough capabilities. Now I can move over, and communication sites is a great platform for the portals as well. And then because customers start accepting this, then we can see a massive uptake on the development as well. So absolutely makes sense. Yep. Now, quickly on my side before we close up. So I'll be in Connect, like I said. I will do a slightly different keynote, not technology. I'm not deep diving on marketing. I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm trying to explain the power of community and how did we get here, and how the community has natively.
That is also marketing, even though you're not selling anything.
Yeah, that's fair. But how the community influences on the product design and what are we actually getting. So, but looking in the back and also the future of the SharePoint. So let's see how that goes. So
cool.
But we'll see that on Wednesday morning. But I'm pretty sure that there will be a massive amount of additional other content available during this week related on SharePoint as well. I think that's it for this one. So thank you, Velin. Thank you for joining on this time and being the visitor. And thank you for joining also on the PMP core team as well. Super excited on getting you on board there as well. Waldek, any last words?
We will have next episode next week.
That is true. Sounds good. Excellent. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.